Someone told me Opay is a bank. Someone else said, nah, Opay is not a bank. And then they went on arguing for about 20 minutes. And you see that confusion, that is what this course is going to fix. Welcome to Fintech Fundamentals, the free YouTube course where I break down how the financial technology industry works. As someone who has worked in this space for the past 7 years, my name is Majemuoluwa and welcome to episode 1. By the end of this video, you would learn what a traditional bank is, what fintech actually means, because a lot of people get this wrong, and then what are neobanks? I call them the confusing middle child, and how all three relate with each other. So let's start with the one we all grew up with, traditional banks. So think about banks like GT Bank, Access Bank, Zenith, Barclays, Chase, Wells Fargo, Regent Bank. These are traditional banks. And then the question could be, what exactly do banks do? Well, primarily they do three things. First, they help you hold your money. Secondly, they lend out your money to people. And then finally, they charge you fees for moving money around. Of course, this is not all that banks do, but if I'm going to categorize into three things primarily, it would be these three things. So here's the wild part most people do not know about banks. When you deposit, say, 100,000 naira into your bank account, that money is not just going to be sitting pretty somewhere in the bank, right? So typically what banks do is they lend out a reasonable sum of that money to someone else. So it could be to a business, it could be to a mortgage facility, it could be to an individual, right? And then they pay you 4% interest on that 100,000 naira that you have kept with them. Whereas to whoever they've lent out that money to, they could be earning 20%. They'll be charging the borrower 20% interest. And you see, that is one of the ways banks actually make money from the deposits that you put into the bank. Another thing about traditional banks is they typically have physical branches, thousands of employees, and they are regulated by the central bank. So in Nigeria, we have the CBN, in the US, it's the Feds, and in the UK, it's the Bank of England. They also have banking licenses, and you see that banking licenses, that is what gives them the right to actually hold and keep your money. Don't worry, we'll talk a bit more about licenses in another video, right? But just so you know that license is sort of equal to trust from the government. So yeah, that's for traditional bank, and I guess we're typically familiar with traditional banks. So now let's go to fintech, and this is where I think a lot of people mix things up, because fintech is not just one thing, right? In literal terms, fintech is financial technology, meaning any company that uses technology to deliver financial services is technically a fintech. And I mean, this definition is so broad, and if you dig it also involves like your traditional bank mobile apps. I mean, they're using technology to deliver financial services. But in most cases, when people say fintech, they actually mean something more specific. So in practice, fintech usually means companies that uses technology to offer financial services faster, cheaper, and maybe even better than traditional banks. But in most cases, they do not actually have a banking license themselves. So examples, we have the likes of Paystack, Flutterwave, Wise, Stripe. Well, these are not banks. I mean, they don't have the license to hold and keep your money like traditional banks. But then they are able to move money, help process payments, basically what banks do, but they help with moving money, processing payments, which is also what banks do. But these fintechs have actually come to do this in a faster, cheaper, and I dare say a more effective and efficient way. So here's an analogy to help you understand what I'm explaining a bit better. Think about traditional banks as that big supermarket that sells literally everything. So from groceries to clothing, electronics, basically everything. While fintechs are like those specialist shops that do one thing, right? They sell just one thing and then they sell it extremely well. So you have a shop that is just for shoes, you have a shop that is just for electronics, you have a shop that is just for skincare. So they are focused on that thing that they're selling, and then they try and ensure they do it extremely well. So the big supermarkets actually still exist, but then the specialist shop are now eating into the supermarket business because they're focusing on that one thing that they are doing or that they are selling, and they are ensuring that they do it well. So fintech companies comes in different shapes, right? Like I mentioned, specialist shops. So we have the payment processors, we have digital lenders, we have investment apps, savings and investment apps, we have apps for cross-border payments, we have crypto apps, we have insurance tech, and I mean the lists can go on and on and on like that. But don't worry, we'll cover each category in subsequent episodes so that you understand how each of these different fintech areas, how they actually work. So now let's talk about neobanks, aka the confusing middle child. This is where it gets interesting, and I think this is what started the argument at the beginning of the video about OPay. A neobank is a fintech company that feels and looks like a bank, but then it lives entirely on your phone. So no physical branches like traditional banks. It's basically all just an app. So examples would be Kuda Bank in Nigeria, we have Revolut in Europe, we have Chime in the United States. So they give you an account, probably also give you a debit card, sometimes offer savings, offer loans, and it just feels like a bank. But the question is, are they actually a bank? And this is where it gets complicated, because some neobanks actually have a banking license. For instance, Kuda has a banking license, so that makes them a bank, just that it's a digital one, while others don't have a license. So what they do is they partner with another licensed bank, and then they use their license in the background to be able to offer banking services to you, their customers. So in that case, I would say they are really just a fintech wearing a bank's clothes. You're probably wondering, why does this distinction actually matter? Well, if the company that owes your money collapses, you actually want to know who is actually holding your deposits. Is it the app, or is there another bank behind it that is actually holding your deposits? Don't worry, we'll get into more details around this when we get to the regulation episode. But for now, just know that the fact that a company calls themselves a neobank doesn't automatically mean that they are a bank. So it is very important that you actually check to know who is holding your money in whatever app that you're using. And typically for a lot of apps, a lot of companies, you would see this information on their website or on their FAQ document. So now let's wrap this all up with a quick recap. Traditional banks, these are licensed, they have physical branches, they are licensed to hold money, and they also make money from interest. And then fintechs, they are technology first companies. Sometimes they do not own a banking license, but then they are specialized in one area of financial services and they do it extremely well. And finally, neobanks, these are fintechs that just operate or feels like a bank. They may or may not have a banking license, no physical branches, just the app only. I hope you now understand the distinction between these three. So in the next episode, we're going to be exploring something interesting, something that most people have genuinely never actually thought about, right? So what happens when you hit send on your payment app? When you try to send money from your account to another person, what actually happens behind the scenes? It's actually really interesting, right? Understanding how all of these systems work behind the scenes. And I'm sure you'd actually also find this interesting. So if you're not subscribed yet to my channel, hit that subscribe button. My goal is to hit 3,000 subscribers before the end of this year. So help make this happen. Hit the subscribe button, and I will see you in the next episode of Fintech Fundamentals. Bye.